Well, good morning and welcome back into Wake Up America. It is Monday, December the 14th, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rob Finnerty. Here's some of the stories that we're following for you on this Monday morning. The very first trucks carrying the coronavirus vaccine for widespread use here in the United States pulled out yesterday. Will this finally be the resolution that we've desperately waited for? Plus, in just about 30 minutes here on Wake Up America, we've got a very special guest. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is going to be joining us live here on the show. And live from New York, we've got an angry comedy club owner ready to take on what was once one of the biggest names in what was once sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live. We'll tell you about that in just a little bit here on the show. But first, that first batch of coronavirus vaccines in transit right now, leaving a manufacturing plant in Kalamazoo, Michigan, late yesterday, on their way to hospitals and health departments across the United States. And joining us now once again to talk about this moment in history, and it is historic, is Chief of Staff at United Memorial Medical Center in Houston, Texas, Dr. Joseph Varone, back with us again here on Wake Up America. What a huge day this is. Americans are finally going to get access to vaccines starting today. How do you expect this rollout to go today? And do you expect any major issues throughout the day today and this week?
No, I mean, I believe that, over the next few days, we're going to see that people, first of all, are going to be very interested in starting to get vaccinated, at least those of us who believe in the vaccine. Then you're going to have a series of people requesting the vaccine. That may be one of the issues because, I've been bombarded by phone calls and emails of people that are begging to get the vaccine. That's going to be a little bit of an issue while we get more doses. But I think that this is going to be good. It's going to be at least some relief, especially for the healthcare workers that are the first ones that are going to get it. It's kind of a way of telling them, hey, you can go and take care of patients and be a little more relaxed about it.
Dr. Varone, U.S. Marshals and police forces throughout the country are actually going to be escorting these trucks as they make their way to the 636 different predetermined locations throughout the U.S. today. One report says that will likely continue throughout at least the next couple of weeks because these vaccines are so darn valuable. Do you expect that?
Absolutely. I mean, at this point in time, this is liquid gold. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some bad people there that truly want to grab these vaccines.
So 2.9 million doses are headed out to hospitals and different nursing homes, as they should, quite frankly, today and this week in what's being called the first phase of the vaccine's rollout. Again, over 600 predetermined locations. How were these all selected? Was it random or was there a method to this madness?
No, they were selected, and some of us are actually upset about how the selection process was. It seems that they just chose like the biggest hospitals in the U.S. that had more than 1,000 or more employees. That's how they chose. So not the community hospitals, not hospitals that may be caring for probably even more patients than the big hospitals. The decisions were made at the state level. Each state had their own and so on. And over a period of time, pretty much every big hospital in the U.S., big and small hospital in the U.S. are going to get the vaccine, and then slowly it's going to be rolled to clinics at some point in time. I'm sure you've heard that even some of the big pharmacies are going to be providing this vaccine.
Dr. Varone, I think our viewers should know you have worked for 270 straight days since the start of this pandemic. So first of all, thank you for that. I want to ask you about how you feel President Trump and your colleagues feel about President Trump and his leadership throughout this pandemic. It's the fastest vaccine in U.S. history. I think we understand that there's going to be some criticism, but no matter who was in the Oval Office when this hit our shores from China, there was going to be some criticism. But I want to hear what you think about how he's led us through this.
I mean, people need to understand the problem with the pandemic is not a one-man problem. It's not President Trump by himself. There are so many people. I think that President Trump has done a good job, at least in advancing this vaccine. This vaccine has come out in 9 months. I mean, for God's sake, that's the fastest any vaccine has been able to be done. So on that standpoint, he needs to be commended. Now, with regards to the comments about wearing or not wearing a mask or stuff like that, I mean, when you have the CDC saying one thing, the World Health Organization saying an opposite thing,
Right.
I mean, come on. I mean, I think that he said what most of us would have said because that's what we hear from the experts, quote unquote.
Yeah. Quote unquote, exactly. The World Health Organization. I mean, my goodness, the misinformation that we've gotten out of them over the last several months. That is Dr. Joseph Varone joining us twice this morning. A very important day here across the United States as this vaccine is rolled out. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Varone. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Good day.
All right, well, let's go to Emerald Robinson. She's in Washington, D.C. right now, our White House correspondent. Emerald, we've got a very special guest coming up in about 25 minutes here on the show. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is going to be joining us. We're very excited to have the Secretary on the show.
Yeah, it's always great to have Secretary Pompeo on, specifically on a day like today where there's a lot of China news. The Secretary is always very knowledgeable. He's always very articulate about the foreign policy of this administration, and a large part of that has been China. So let's talk about what broke over the weekend, Rob. Over the weekend, there was a leaked database of almost 2 million registered Chinese Communist Party members that have been found to be working in companies and consulates across the globe. That list is in Mandarin, so right now it's being translated. There's a teaser list of about 8,000 names that have been translated. Of those, there are reportedly 52,000 American names on that list. One thing we do know right now, Rob, is that a number of British companies were infiltrated, that being the two pharmaceutical giants, Pfizer and AstraZeneca, along with Jaguar and Rolls-Royce. Also, British banks. There on that list is some 600 employees that are working across 19 branches in HSBC and Standard Chartered. Also, there is included on the list a senior official at the British consulate in Shanghai. Now, what's interesting also about this database leaking over the weekend is that we've seen sort of the dam breaking on information regarding the influence efforts of the CCP across the globe. Let's look at that. I love timelines. I think they're very telling. So on December 3rd, the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in which he said, one member of Congress was targeted in a very specific and interesting way, that being Representative Eric Swalwell, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee. He had a relationship, lots of questions about the nature of that relationship, with a spy called Fang Fang. Then on December 9th, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, goes to Georgia Tech, where he lays out the influence campaign that the CCP operates in American universities and colleges. So this is all very interesting. It seems like we're really seeing a lot of information coming out on a daily basis regarding how the CCP tries to infiltrate companies, universities, and even our own Congress.
It was laid out for us in black and white last week with Eric Swalwell, as you said.
Yeah, it was.
We should say Mike Pompeo, by the way, he spoke at Georgia Tech. He studied engineering at West Point. He's a math guy, so he was happy to go and speak at Georgia Tech, which is a great school. But originally, he was scheduled to speak at MIT.
Yeah.
The chancellor at MIT called him just before he was supposed to go and said, listen, because of the amount of Chinese professors we've got working here and because of the number of Chinese national students we have here, we don't think your comments are going to be appropriate. And they turned away the Secretary of State from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. But he said at Georgia Tech that Xi Jinping's, that the Chinese intentions here in the U.S. are nothing but sinister. And it was very telling.
Yeah.
We're going to ask him more about that coming up in just about 20 minutes here on Wake Up America. But Emerald, we teased it about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I know you've got a very unique Mike Pompeo story, so tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. You know what? I've actually gotten the opportunity to travel with the secretary a couple times overseas. And actually just a year ago in December, I know, talk to him about Morocco and that peace plan. I was actually in Morocco with the secretary on a whirlwind three country tour. He moves very fast. But also I've gotten some time, to sit down with him at the State Department, off the record and on the record. I've gotten to interview him a couple times, but I've also gotten a tour of the State Department from the Secretary on one time that I was there, and I got to see some rooms that I hadn't seen before. I've covered different events at the State Department, but we got a special tour where we got to see some areas where you wouldn't normally be covering events. And I had to say, it was really beautiful. It was beautiful rooms. He shared some of the history of those rooms as well. The State Department is rich in history and all kinds of, major policy moves that have been made there, but also just some really nice anecdotal stories about some of the people who have held the reins at the State Department. It was just really cool.
Yeah,
and the Secretary is very charismatic. He's very personable, so he's a great storyteller.
Well, he's a Midwest guy. He's from Kansas.
Yeah.
I used to work in the Kansas City media market, and I'll tell you what, his reputation, just with dealing with local media and how available he was, just a sterling reputation. So we're looking forward to having him here on Wake Up in just a little bit.
Yeah.
Emerald, over the weekend, I was not up for this. My boss actually had to send me this email early in the morning yesterday. I missed it live. I got to be honest. Saturday Night Live, they were funny a long time ago, like Will Ferrell years. I don't think they're that funny anymore, and I don't think they really.
Yeah.
They are so left wing. They immediately eliminate half their audience right when they start every Saturday night. But they mocked Newsmax on Saturday night. Did you see this?
I'm like you, Rob. I saw it because our producer sent it to us because we both have young kids, right? So
Right.
I was in bed too. I haven't stayed up that late in a long time. But yeah, I saw it. They did they did Newsmax, but Sports Max, if I can get it out. And
Right.
Rob, I just want to congratulate Saturday Night Live on the Sports Max skit because, like you, I haven't found them to be funny in a long time. But I would say this is the first time Pete Davidson had been funny in probably 5 years.
Yeah, I would maybe more than that. Pete Davidson, he's just kind of vile. But this was so Sportsmax. They were talking about the Jets, who are just they're having a very rough year this year, and they were mocking Newsmax and the Jets, basically saying that the Jets they've got a winning season if you judge them only by the first quarter of play. It was pretty funny. Newsmax has certainly arrived. Emerald Robinson, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Always great to see you.
You too.